Hey, what's up, guys? This is Lee Baker, and today I want to talk about overdrive concepts, like concepts, ideas around how we get our dirt sounds, overdrive sounds, distortion sounds, all those sorts of things. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I'm going to talk about a few of those, and then I want to talk about how I get my overdrive sounds, which is just one of the myriad of ways that you can get breakup, overdrive, distortion, dirty sounds on guitar. So first, I'm going to go over some notes and stuff too. Because I don't really want to leave anything out, and there's so much to talk about when it comes to overdrive sounds and how we get those sounds and what we're really chasing, what we're looking for, in getting those sounds. And I think that to figure out how you want to get those sounds, you have to kind of ask the question, two questions actually. One is, do the overdrive sounds that I'm getting, do they sound the way I want them to sound? And the second question is, do they feel the way I want them to feel? Here's what I mean. Because there's a lot of ways we hear overdrive in our head. Maybe you've tried to get the overdrive sound that you've heard in your head, the distortion sounds you're hearing in your head, and you could be going about it all the wrong way. And so we're going to talk about a few of those sounds, talk about each one of those, or the options around getting those sounds. And then you have to answer the question, how does it feel? You get to the right thing that sounds right, just doesn't quite feel right. Like I've heard other players play that pedal or that amp, and it sounds really great in their hands, but when I put that guitar on and I strum the chord, it doesn't break up the way I feel like it should, that sort of thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, let's talk about some of the ways that we get overdrive sounds. Basically it's just an amp. You can crank an amp, get it really, really dirty, and then roll your volume off to clean up, and you can get, a wide range of sounds. You can use a Marshall, you can use Vox, you can use whatever that you can crank up. Now, it helps to have a master volume so it doesn't get crazy loud, but sometimes most of the times I find you have to get an amp really loud for it to sound really great broken up. So you can get an amp real loud, you can use your volume to clean up. Really simple way to do that. Really simple way to get those sounds, and really simple way to clean up and get kind of a variation of those as you roll your volume knob, that sort of thing. You could get an amp that has multiple channels. One of the first amps I ever used regularly was a Marshall JTM, little small 60 watt head, I think it was, and it had like a clean channel and a dirty channel. And then I had one pedal that was like a boost thing, but it was mainly like a multi-channel amp. And a lot of guys, that's how they get their overdrive. Now, there's triple channel and quadruple channel amps, where you can have these different settings of like light overdrive and then like a distortion and like a really heavy thing. You get sounds that way. The other way that I see a lot of people getting them, and this is the way I get mine, is clean amps and pedals. All my dirt comes from the front end from my pedal board. And even inside of that, there's a lot of ways that you can get your overdrive sounds. I know guys who have one overdrive pedal or fuzz pedal, and they use the volume roll-off thing. I know guys that have different flavors of overdrive pedals because they like, as they move up in gain, to sort of it feel like they're switching amps. So maybe you got like transparent blues driver, kind of thing first as a light overdrive. Maybe you got kind of a medium amp thing second, or a really defined overdrive second with a little more gain, and then your third one maybe like a Marshall in a box type thing. So that's a way that you can get those sounds. Or you can use multiple of the same pedals. So you can use multiple different pedals, and you can use multiple of the same pedals. And there's relationships, that go into all of that, the volume, the gain, the order of the pedal. Even if you use a compressor, where does your compressor go in the chain? There's a million options, and none of it is right or wrong. You're really trying to figure out the answer to those two questions. Does it sound good? Does it sound like that great sound that I hear in my head? And does it feel right to my hands when I'm hitting the chord, playing the line, ripping the solo? Does it feel like it's breaking up correctly? And so you have to kind of answer those questions for yourself. Watch players that you really like their sound. Listen to records that you go, man, I wish I could get that sound. Figure out what they're doing and see if that works for you. But I also think that sometimes maybe the sound you want, you may have to get a different way than the person who's playing it, because the greatest element of the way we sound is the way we approach the instrument, the way we touch the fret side of the guitar with our left hand or right hand, depending on if you're left hand or right hand. But the way you touch the frets, the way that you strum, the kind of pick you use, the type of strings you use, the kind of guitar that you're using, all that stuff matters, but it really boils down to you playing the instrument and you getting the sound. So just because you see a lot of people maybe using pedals doesn't mean you can't just find a great amp and crank it up and find the sound that you're wanting, or that you can just use one pedal and figure out how to make that work for you. I have chosen the multiple pedals of the same exact kind. I want my overdrive to feel like I'm just turning up the gain on an amp that I really love. And that's what I feel like I've gotten. So I have 3 of the same overdrive pedal that I really love, and I'll explain a little bit more about why I love them when I play here in just a second. But I have 3 of those, and I love for the gain to just stage up like I'm turning the knob up on my amp. Now, I would do that with my volume pedal, but the way that I play, the situations I find myself in, there's a lot of jumping from overdrive sounds, and it's almost like playing in scenes. And so I use an RJM programmable looper, and I'm switching a lot. And a lot of times I'm playing parts or something sustaining, and I can't always stop picking to adjust my volume. And you know how it is when you're adjusting your volume knob, you get it kind of close, and then you kind of tweak it a couple times. I don't really have that luxury a lot of times. I have to it has to be nailed like from part to part. And so I've kind of chosen this route of multiple drive pedals, but the exact same pedal, because I just want more of the same thing. For a while, I tried multiple different pedals, and I thought that was great, but the whole structure of my sound would change. And what I found out was I had these amps that I really liked, and I really just wanted to find the drive pedal that would complement those amps and make it seem like the amps were just getting more overdriven over time. And so that's the sound that I ended up going with. And I would just encourage you, man, try stuff, experiment with stuff. It doesn't mean that you're dissatisfied. It doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. You're just trying to find out what sound works for you, the kind of music you like, the kind of music you want to create, the kind of music you get excited about, the kind of guitar playing you get excited about, the way you touch the guitar. All of that's going to be really unique. And obviously, choosing the right amp is crucial to that. First, finding the amp that you really dig, that you really love the sound of, whether it's a clean platform thing or an overdriven thing or a multi-channel thing, find what works for you. But then at the same time, then you start exploring what pedals sound great and what pedals pair well with that amp to achieve all of the gain staging and overdrive sounds and fuzz sounds and things like that you really, really want to get to. So I want to give you a shot of my board, and I'm going to walk through just how I stage gain and how I set my pedals and everything. So let's jump over there and take a look. All right, well, let's talk about some pedals here. This is my pedal board, and if you notice, up in the upper right corner of the board there are 3 pedals that look exactly the same. That's the Ages from Walrus Audio. And I'll tell you what I like about this pedal so much and why I have 3 of them. And there are other pedals on the market that have some of the similar characteristics. This pedal is new, and it's my favorite. I have been testing prototypes and working a little bit with Walrus Audio for the past 5 or 6 years, just testing stuff, just talking about pedals and all that sort of stuff with friends there. And this pedal in particular, I got really, really, really excited about because of some of the structure of the way this pedal was made. And so first, let me tell you a little bit about why I love it. I told you a minute ago, I went with the multiple drives of the same type. And there's certain things that I've found on years and years, through years and years of trying overdrive pedals, playing over, liking them, but then like, man, I like that pedal, but for the application or the sound I want or who I feel like I am as a player and all those sorts of things, it just wasn't all the way right. And so it was really, really awesome for me to find like the things that I liked after trading pedals. So I had been playing this pedal that I found by Petty John Electronics called the Iron Drive, their version 1 of that. And as I found that, I started to really like read a little bit more about overdrive pedals, which I'm horrible at, learning things actually about how gear works. Maybe you're the same way. I just plug stuff in and mess with it until it makes the sound I want most of the time, but I've really been trying to be better about being a student of some of this stuff. So what I found out I like that was in the Iron pedal that's also here in the Ages is LED clipping. I love LED clipping. It's really open. It's not very compressed. I don't play a lot of like distortion, heavy metal type distortion. Overdrive, heavy overdrive sometimes, and I'll get to some of that, but I don't play a lot of distortion. What I really like is really open breakup. Really what feels and sounds natural to me is breakup. And what I've found is, for the most part, that is LED clipping. And that's what all three of these Aegis pedals are set to on my board. I think that's fantastic. One of the things I also love about this pedal, the Aegis in particular, and there are other overdrives that are designed like this as well, but I think that the voicing of this is the best in the Aegis. The bass circuit, the low end, is actually before the gain circuit, so that the low end of the pedal, I always like to dial out a little lows from most overdrives that I use, and this one is no different. The bass knob is the lower left of each one of those pedals. I like to dial out some lows, and I don't want the low end causing any unnecessary breakup. It's sort of why mastering engineers, when they're working on records, will sidechain some of the low end out of the compression, because they don't want to make the compressor work on frequencies that they want to deal with separately, or frequencies that may get carved out anyway, to cause it to overcompress. And low end causes more compression and drive to happen naturally as a frequency. So I love that the gain, the breakup circuit of this pedal, is actually after the bass circuit, so I can dial that out. Then the pedal breaks up. Then I get to kind of tame the high end a little bit, or add some high end, or whatever it is that I feel like I need to do. So the other feature that I really found out I like that is on this pedal, again, is on some other drive pedals as well, but I think it's done really well on the Aegis, is the dry signal. So there's a dry knob in the upper row in the middle, where you can actually mix in your dry signal to a little bit above unity. And if you turn the gain all the way down, you can just use it like a boost pedal, which is really cool. Or you can add a little gain too, but the gain and the dry knob kind of work in relationship to each other, which is really, really nice. So you can keep some of the quality of your clean signal and what you love about your amps, and retain that, and still have, some overdrive and grit and all that sort of stuff mixed in that sounds really natural, at least to me. So I love that about the pedal as well. Trying to make sure I don't leave anything out here. This pedal has 5 different versions of breakup on it. There's some silicon LED, there's a hard clipping option, and then there's a couple of variations, low and high gain of silicon and LED. So you have like a low gain silicon, I think, is the first one, then like a lower gain LED, then a higher gain silicon, higher gain LED, and then a hard clipping option are the 5, I'm pretty sure, on this pedal. So I love all that about this. One of the other things to note about the way I set up, you see my Pettyjohn Crush compressor there next to the last Aegis overdrive. I have my compression actually after my overdrives. The SSL G-Series bus compressor is my favorite compressor of all time as a master bus compressor. I also use it on guitar buses if I'm mixing a record or working on a record that has multiple guitars. I just love that compressor for whatever reason. And the Crush was kind of patterned after that. And so I just like the way that compressor works, and putting it after my overdrives, whatever drive, if you're stacking overdrives or anything like that, whatever drive is last determines the characteristic of the sound. So by having my compressor last, it kind of keeps the characteristics of each one of these overdrives, even as I start stacking. Even though they're the same drive, there's a lot that it keeps the same. It's kind of an equalizer, and I like it working like a bus compressor instead of taming my front end. I like it kind of taming everything on the back end. Now, because it's in my looper, I turn it off, when you get to higher gain settings, because those are compressed anyway. They don't need to be compressed. But I run really light compression, and so it's not really hitting it. It just allows me to kind of EQ structure. So sometimes I'll leave it on in high gain settings, just because of the EQ and stuff kind of play an equalizer there to the sound. So let me walk through. First, I'll show you just clean. This is just amp sound right here. I got a little bit of reverb on from the Empress. I'm going through the Chase Bliss Condor. I always go through my Condor, have different presets in that preamp for different guitars that I'll use. So I never really touch my drive pedals. I only change the preset on the Condor depending on what guitar I'm using, and that will equalize volume and kind of change some EQ things on the signal coming in before it hits my overdrive. So just so you know, a little bit of verb, stay on the whole time. That is clean, just amps. Right now I've got a Woolly Coats Extra Spanky on the left and a Fender Bassman on the right side, a 64 Blackface vintage Bassman on the right side, and I'm running in stereo. So that's clean. Here's the first Ages. You see it just gets a little bit brighter and a little bit of dirt. That's the Ages all the way to the right side. Now, here's the second Ages. Little dirtier. I carve out just a touch more bass. As you add gain, sometimes the low end comes up with it. And so I carved out just a little more bass, pulled back on the dry signal just a little bit, increased the gain, obviously, to get a little bit more dirt. And the volume comes up just a little bit. One of the things I like in stages of overdrive is usually when I'm kicking those on, it's because the song is getting more aggressive and I need to match the energy of the song. So a little bit more gain, a little bit more volume comes with that. So here is the third Ages. Again, here's the first one again. Here's the second one. Here's the third one. And then I get into some stacking variations. So first, it's the first into the second Ages. So let me walk through those one more time so you can hear the progression of gain and volume as it changes. So you can see and hear the progression of those up to get dirtier and dirtier. And I know it sounds and maybe seems a little extravagant to have three of the same pedal, but again, when you find the thing that works, don't be afraid to do it in the way that you need to. You know, I mentioned before, I play a lot of scenes, and so I have presets for songs and all that sort of stuff. It's not easy for me to grab my volume knob and get it just right when I'm going from a verse to a chorus or something like that. And so it's really, really helpful to me to have presets and just have multiple drives. And I am like you. I've bought and sold and traded up and, you know, worked for extra money and all that sort of stuff to try to get to this place over years and years and years of trying gear and investing in gear and working towards gear. And so you may find that you only need one overdrive. You may find that you like your compressor before, and that's all great. What I wanted to do today was just give you an example of how it works for me and talk about a few of the concepts around overdrive and how you can get that sound. And so, man, listen, leave questions in the comments. Shoot me a message at Lee Baker on Instagram. Let's get the conversation going and let's find what we like about overdrive and enjoy playing guitar and making those loud rock and roll sounds. So hope you enjoyed it today. Have a great one.